Greetings from Lough Derg, and hello to the Diocese of Derry. Of course, I'm not speaking from Lough Derg today. I'm speaking from home, working from home at this time. Father Flynn here. And I really appreciate this opportunity that Bishop Donald has given me to offer a few words to the people of Derry as you take on a day of special prayer and penance in the context of the present COVID-19 crisis and challenge. A special word of greeting perhaps to those of you who may know me, who are familiar with Lough Derg, those of you who have been on the 3-day pilgrimage, some of you maybe recently with Bishop Donald, others have been on our one-day retreats. The Diocese of Derry is our neighbour here, not for very many miles from the lake shore. You can go into the parish of Ahiarn if you're going in that direction. So welcome one and all. There is a time, or was a time recently, fairly recently, when fasting and penance in general were very much a part of Catholic life. It used to be that every Friday was what we called a fast day, meaning a day of abstinence from meat, and even our Protestant neighbours knew that Catholics did that on a Friday. Penance has probably fallen out of fashion, conscious that even those who come to do the 3-day pilgrimage on Lough Derg, when they talk about why they have come, about what brings them there, they don't often speak of it in terms of doing penance. Now, they give themselves with generosity to the fast and to the vigil and to the bare feet and so on. And I suppose they're conscious that God is not outdone in generosity. I'm delighted that Derry Diocese would think of undertaking a day of penance and fasting in the spirit of Lough Derg at this time that is a particularly vulnerable time for so many. Penance, of course, is a timeless tradition, very much part of the Christian and the Jewish practice, and shared by several other world religions. And it's particularly seen as a way of intensifying our prayer in the face of times of crisis and our prayer for God's deliverance. In the time of the prophet Isaiah, the people were fasting in such a time like this, and they were a bit disappointed that God didn't seem to be answering them, and they were saying, why fast, why do penance if God is not taking notice? The response that the prophet Isaiah gave was a rather challenging one. He says, maybe there's something about the approach that you have to this. If you put your lives in right order, and if you get rid of quarrelling and squabbling and taking advantage of others, if you put on a cheerful face and share your resources with those who are in need, then you will see that your practice of penance has a different outcome. So generous and sustained cheerful penance is entirely appropriate in a time like this. The great preacher John Chrysostom, about the year 400 in Constantinople, gave a similar message to his congregation, including the emperor and the empress. He was a brave man to take this on in their company, but he challenged them that their penance should involve not only their stomachs fasting from food, but also their tongues fasting from hurtful and disturbing words, and their ears fasting from gossip. So solidarity with the poor and the marginalised and good relationship with others, this really is very much part of authentic penance. Jesus himself was asked a question once about fasting, and he gave an answer using the image of a wedding. He said fasting wouldn't be appropriate during a wedding. The friends of the bridegroom will enjoy the feasting. But he said when the bridegroom is taken away, referring to himself as the bridegroom, that is the time for fast. And so penance and fasting, in some way or other, maybe is about the aspects of our lives where Jesus is not as present or not as fully present as we would like him to be, or as we would need him to be. So Pope Francis speaks about the value of the prayer of petition. We would be taking on this day of penance in this context in terms of a strong petition to God. And Pope Francis says about prayer of petition that prayer of petition calms our hearts and strengthens our hope. These would be great blessings to flow from a day like the day that you are undertaking. Let me offer you finally an image from one of the desert fathers, those ascetic people in 4th century Egypt. Asked a question about fasting, one of these people said that fasting is like the leaves on a fruit tree. We don't grow a fruit tree for the sake of the leaves, but the leaves are very important so that the fruit that the tree bears may be rich and plentiful. And so it is my prayer that this undertaking of yours, this special day of fasting and penance, would be a day that will bear fruit for you, for all your diocese, and indeed more widely, in terms of strengthening root and branch your Christian faith and your Christian living in the face of these challenging times in which we live. And perhaps we might see some of you on Lough Derg whenever we are able to be open and going again. Bear Bannacht agus Bua.